now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. I call our meeting to order. First part of business, approval of minutes, October 11th, 2022. Commissioner Baker, I believe you were absent, so is there a motion to approve or any discussion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Second, first and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye vote. Commission. 4-0, excuse me, thank you. Appreciate it. Commissioners' reports and comments. Vice President Baker.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Hope you enjoy our meeting today. This past week, I had a couple of very serious calls, complaints, and it related to all of the blasting over around Downsville Pike. I believe it's Sterling Road over there where they're building the warehouse, and the property owners are very, very upset. The one property owner, after a blast, there was a major hole in the backyard, had to go get concrete to fill the hole in. And then the other one was a serious, very serious foundation issues. So, and they were really, really calling me, giving me heck, and I told them my job is to try to find out who in the county I could contact, I guess to pay a visit, and I'd like to go along with them and go out there and see what the situation is. And when we have all of these blastings going on throughout the county, I don't know, I'd like to know if there are any policies, anything in place that hold someone accountable other than the property owner in such incidents like this.
We've had different complaints about different blasting around the county, and our staff is always responsive. I believe the state of Maryland is actually, it falls to the state of Maryland. I forget what.
Fire marshal.
Fire marshal.
Under the fire marshal's office, but.
And they had mentioned the fire marshal, and they weren't getting any resolutions from the fire marshal.
Okay. Normally what we do is our staff will reach out to the fire marshal and discuss it with them. And sometimes they'll reach out directly to the developer or the contractor to see, but that is handled at the state level, not by the county.
Because I know our quarries, they have a lot of policies and things in place to where I know for wells and things like that, they're automatically responsible.
Right.
And I don't know if we have anything in place, and we probably should here in Washington County for situations like that. These are property owners that have lived in their homes 20, 30 years, paid their taxes every year, and they shouldn't. Somebody should be accountable for incidences such as that.
All right, I'll have our staff reach out to the fire marshal. Do you have the names of those individuals?
Yes.
You can provide those to me.
Yeah.
I'll have staff reach out to them and see what we can do to help.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Baker, anything else?
That's it.
Right. Commissioner Kiefer.
I have a couple of things. One, just to another comment on Commissioner Baker's remarks. It's interesting that quarries do have to follow certain regulations, and I know some of our larger projects that are going on in the county, they're in essence setting up temporary quarries on site. The rock that they blast, they end up milling down or grinding down into the gravel that's used for the project in different capacities. So it would be nice to see if even a temporary quarry in that case has to abide by those same policies to protect the neighboring property owners. So I've heard those complaints too. I just wanted to congratulate the county, citizens, staff for working on a lot of projects that received some ceremonial ribbon cuttings in the last week. I know Hitachi Rail involved a lot of back and forth with this body, and presumably other levels of government was involved as well. I just want to thank our county staff, business development, whoever may have had a hand in that. I know I saw a lot of figureheads and elected officials that were there for that and taking credit, and again, it involves some work from elected officials as well, but a lot of the back and forth, the nitty-gritty happens because of county staff, and just would like to thank them for that. And that was a project that like I said, we had a lot of back and forth over the last several months to get that project to fruition. the ceremonial groundbreaking for Meritus Medical School is a project that this body hasn't necessarily had much of a hand in up to this point. I hope we do in the future. Another great project that's many years in the making and will take many years to unfold, but a project that will certainly be transformational for the county. So I thought it was nice that we saw two projects, one that's taken many months to work on to bring to where it is today, and a project that's just launching and will take some of our effort going forward. So just wanted to comment on the good week it was for Washington County. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Burkett?
Good morning, Washington County. I attended several of those groundbreakings last week, and it is an exciting time for Washington County. My only note to mention is that I attended my last Washington County Housing Board meeting, and was a general meeting, and nothing really of consequence to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wagner.
Good morning. I too was able to attend Hitachi's groundbreaking, the hospital, which is huge also, their new training facility for physicians. And also Step and Stride out at HCC. They had their breast cancer awareness event that they have every year. It was very well attended, and it was just a nice event, and it went well. And then HAPC banquet, which is Hagerstown Area Pregnancy Center Banquet. I think I got those initials right. But so I got to do that. Plus, a highlight was 2 Eagle Scout ceremonies. One had, 4 Eagle Scouts, and the other one had 1 Eagle Scout. So they're always fun to attend. So I think that's all I have.
Thank you. I too attended one of those Eagle Scout ceremonies. It's always a great day to see our young folks taking leadership roles in our community. How fitting last week was with economic development in Washington County, with this week being Economic Development Week. During a rate of 8-9% inflation and the economy questionable whether we're in a recession or not, Washington County is bringing businesses and opening business in Washington County, especially the medical college. I think that's a $180 million investment, and high-paying manufacturing jobs coming in with Hitachi. So it was a great week for Washington County. And I too attended the Step and Stride cancer event at the college. It was well attended. The enthusiasm and the energy out there amongst the survivors and families was incredible to partake of. That concludes my report. We'll now begin with staff comments. Mr. Mason.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dave Mason with Department of Solid Waste. Last month, we were approached by Valacor, which is a pretreatment facility there at the Concrete wastewater treatment plant. They are having some issues processing our leachate during cold winter months, so they are going to cut us off when it gets cold because the nitrogen levels have been too high. So we have been scrambling to come up with alternatives so that we do not run into a permit violation ourselves. So I'm asking for a budget transfer in the amount of $48,958 for SCS engineers to complete a study of potential pretreatment options at the 40 West landfill. Funds will be from our solid waste contingency, just transferring them into our general engineering line item. We are working on some potential options for short term until we can get this completed with Department of Water Quality, so that we can minimize any violations we may have and minimize any other violations that Valacor may have until we can get something done.
Dave, is this an issue every year once the temperature drops?
That I'm not sure. They just approached us. I know they've had issues in the past. They've had several violations. I know cold winter months is, terrible for treatment. But it must be getting to a point now where they have to act, which is forcing us into a corner as well.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have first and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Continuing with staff comments. Krista, anything?
No, sir.
Mr. Downey?
Morning. One item, Commissioners. Our
animal control contract with the Humane Society is set to expire at the end of this month. The parties have been negotiating a replacement contract, which we hope to have before the commissioners sometime in the next 30 days or so. However, the parties do not believe that it would be good for the current contract to expire. Therefore, there's a request that the commissioners approve an amendment extending the animal control agreement until the replacement agreement is put in place.
Need a motion?
Yes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have first and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it.
Mr. Administrator?
Thank you, President Klein. Good morning, Commissioners. Just two things in there related. As you know, Susan Grimes, our Director of Business Development, will be leaving county government. Her last day is Friday. So I want to thank Susan personally for everything she's done for Washington County government and over her 8 years with the county. And I want to wish her the best of luck in her new endeavor. And the second part of that, it is my pleasure to recommend Jonathan Horowitz to be promoted to the Director of Business Development at a grade 18, step 5.
Want a motion for that?
Yes.
Motion to approve the promotion of Jonathan Horowitz to,
Is there a second?
Second.
didn't finish
Have
my
first and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Jonathan.
And that, obviously, that'll be effective after Susan leaves. So
All right.
that's all I have.
Any other staff in the audience? Seeing none, we'll now proceed with citizens' participation. This is an opportunity for citizens to comment about an issue or issues of county practices and interests. This is not an interactive dialogue or a question and answer session. It is solely time to hear citizen comments. Please limit your remarks to as close as 3 minutes or under as possible. Beginning with the front row, is there any citizens' comments? Please come forward and name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. I'm Carol Mowen. I teach at Washington County Technical High School, and I come as a representative of the Washington County Teachers Association. May I continue?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments at this public meeting. Yesterday, the Maryland State Board of Education came to Hagerstown. The members toured Tech High and held listening sessions with the Boards of Education of Allegheny, Garrett, and Washington counties. This morning, they are meeting at CES to discuss several topics, including Maryland's blueprint for achieving college and career readiness through apprenticeships for students. On October 18th, our school board members heard a report about our apprenticeship program that we've been piloting with the support of state grants. The results have been very successful, with almost 100 student apprentices currently working in local business and industry positions. This is more than any other county in Maryland, so we are pleased to be able to be a state leader in this area. But in order to meet the needs of all our students, we need county support, both in one-time funding allocations for specific projects and purposes, as well as increases beyond the annual maintenance of effort allocation. For example, yesterday the boards discussed the need to establish partnership programs with Washington County organizations to provide early childhood education programs for 3-year-olds. Our schools do not currently have the staffing or the space to address this need. In fact, the staffing challenge is already impacting our schools in a number of ways. We currently have unfilled positions in both the teacher and support staff areas. In response, WCPS is working hard to compete with neighboring states for teachers. We're working to grow our own teachers through a partnership with Frostburg State University on a paid residency program that culminates in a Master of Arts in Teaching. We also need to raise the salaries of our support staff so that we can compete with local warehouses to fill our hourly positions. We need bus drivers and teaching assistants, technicians and custodians, food service staff and administrative staff, and we need to provide a living wage to our support staff that is competitive with what they can earn in the private sector. Our schools are operating, but we are operating with multiple challenges: staff shortages, aging buildings, student discipline, and more. To meet these challenges, we need your support. When you received a $35 million budget surplus earlier this year, many local educators were disappointed that you did not choose to allocate at least a portion of it to address some of the urgent needs we face. Historically, your decisions have not provided adequate annual support, as noted in the regular low-effort designation Washington County has received. A one-time allocation from the surplus would have been an excellent opportunity to ask our board for a priority need for the current year and to build an improved relationship between the Board of County Commissioners and the Board of Education. In the face of these challenges, we continue to teach our students to read, to write, to think critically, to understand history, to accept responsibility for their actions, and to appreciate the contributions that a culturally diverse population provides to our schools and communities. This November, we will once again celebrate American Education Week. This year's national theme highlights the need for us to work together for safe, just, and equitable schools. So once again, WCTA invites you to talk with us, to visit our schools, and to learn more about both our successes and our challenges as we continue to do our best to provide the best education we can with the resources provided to us. I hope you will accept this invitation to visit your local public schools between November 13th and 19th. You are all Washington County Public Schools graduates. Come and see how our schools have changed since you walked the halls. Sit in an elementary classroom to see how technology has transformed learning. Stop by a middle school to remember what it's like to be an adolescent on the brink of young adulthood. Just contact Neil Becker, Carlos Malat at our WCTA office, or contact me at Tech High. We want you to know us, to understand our needs, and to support our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Continuing with citizens' participation, anybody in the second row? Please come forward, introduce yourself.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dave Williams, 11 West Water Street in Smithsburg. My usual disclosure, I am a candidate for County Commissioner. Maryland law, local government article section 9-401 refers to meeting requirements in counties with commission form of government. The law singles out Washington County and states, the county commissioners of Washington County shall hold at least 10 of their general meetings each year in the evening. I can't recall when the last general meeting was held in the evening, let alone when there were 10 evening meetings in a year. I do recall times over the last 7 months that I've heard comments from others in the audience asking why this meeting couldn't be held when more people could attend. If this law is still in effect, I believe it is, I suggest you begin planning now so you can meet this legal obligation for 2023.
Thank you. Continuing.
I can comment on.
I gotta say something on that.
I was gonna say,
Is that accurate?
I can comment on that. Yeah, and you can remember, we used to meet all the time in municipalities. During COVID, that all came to an end. Paul's shaking his head because him and I have had this discussion, and we are in the process of planning for next year, and we're hoping to get back to meeting with the municipalities on a monthly basis.
Okay, that's
So we will
fine.
do that in the evening.
Okay, continuing with citizens'
correct.
participation. Thank you, John. Is there anyone else? Next row. Anyone else for citizens' participation? Please come forward. Name and address for the record, please.
Stephanie Phillips. My original address was 1112 Mitchell Street, Kensington, Maryland. I really wasn't planning on coming today. I am not scripted. I hope you will indulge me if I run a couple of seconds over. I come in peace with a couple of positive suggestions in honor of my father's 100th, what would be his 100th birthday tomorrow. My father was an extraordinary man. He had the highest national security clearance you could get in this country, working as an elevator man in our nation's capital, and worked with the White House, the embassies, and was an extraordinary father and husband. He supported 7 children, 2 sets of grandparents who were farmers and fishermen who needed support, and it was never work. It was family vacation. And when the lady next door's husband died, he just started mowing her lawn. Extraordinary man. I appreciate everything I've learned while I've been in Washington County. I got to experience like I did when I was a a kid, walking, biking. I appreciate what I learned about civics, politics, and history. I think there might be a need for a regional elected position, regional manager position, based on what I've learned while I've tried to advocate for civil servants being able to live within their community and earn a good living wage. This is how it was when we grew up. And if we had one person who was democratically elected in a region where we have beltway loops, and we could be a test model here, whose sole purpose was national security and advocating for the civil servants, ensuring our neighborhoods, I think that would be very helpful. Two, we proposed a pilot program to encourage young people to consider the democratic process. My family lived in Palm Beach County in 2000, where they had to go back and recount all those ballots because they were confusing. I don't think we can depend solely on machines to do that for us. We had to wait for the Supreme Court to finally decide. It's my understanding that the person who is going to become the next president starts getting their national security briefings after they're elected in a limited capacity, and that having high schoolers with their teachers and retired teachers in real time fact-checking the elections won't just motivate them to consider voting, which I never did till I got to this county, and I want to thank you for what you taught me about being competent to vote. It would help ensure the elections are being fact-checked by human beings. Many jobs have been taken over by machines, and this is a very important issue that human beings should be participating with, especially our young people who are going to inherit the responsibility of advocating for their communities when they're adults. Thank you.
Thank you. Continuing with citizens' participation, is there anyone else in the audience? Seeing none, that concludes citizens' participation. We will now go forward with HCC Dental Hygiene presentation. Dr. Klauber, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I always say beware of college presidents who show off their gifts, but I want to give this out to each of you all. And having left, anybody in the audience certainly wants one. Today, or this month, is
What are you trying to tell me?
Dental Hygiene Month in the United States. And I wanted to come by very briefly and let you know, as you know, we have a dental hygiene program at HCC. That program has been so successful that last year we doubled the size of that program from about 18 students to about 38 students. And that brings up a little bit of a challenge. While we've got plenty of students, program's full at 38, we need some more patients in our clinic, to tell you the truth. We have a clinic. It is not a free clinic. It's a low-cost clinic. We do certain, diagnostic procedures, which is on the handout that is inside your bag, a list of procedures, and we do those procedures at cost. And we work with the dental community who dentists give us referrals to folks that they know who maybe come in, maybe they don't have insurance, or maybe, they can't pay, what the dentist may charge. They'll send them over to our clinic. And that's great. It's a great relationship. We just need some more. And so I wanted to get out here. I know you're out campaigning. You're out seeing people on a regular basis. And I just wanted to implore upon you that when you run into some of your constituents who maybe you may know they're in a situation where they're not insured, maybe they are having a tough time in this inflationary environment, but they need to have some basic dental care, we are there. And folks can call the clinic and make an appointment and come in and be seen for, cleaning, examination, pantograph, x-rays, whatever we can do or allowed to do by the state of Maryland on the list. And so didn't want to come and ask for any money today. I just wanted to come and let you know that, and hopefully that you can spark some awareness in Washington County for the services that we provide for our students to learn and go and become good dental hygienists in our community.
Yeah, you better be careful what you wish for. We put that word out, you might have 300 show up next
That'll
week.
be okay. We'll schedule appointments for them.
Dr. Klauber, thanks for advocating the dental clinic at HCC in the program. My niece graduated this spring from the dental hygiene program, and she found a job before her license came in the mail. She had to be a dental assistant until she was officially licensed, but she found work immediately right away here locally in Washington County, and she's very happy with that career path she chose.
Absolutely. And I tell you, congratulations to her. I would say that dental hygiene is probably one of the 1 or 2 programs that we offer because of the prerequisites you have to go into that program. It is not easy.
No.
All right, Commissioners?
Also to schedule an appointment, any criteria needed or anything like that?
No, the only thing, you just call into the clinic and they'll schedule you an appointment. The only thing, Maryland, the state of Maryland limits the types of procedures that dental hygiene students can do. And so those procedures are listed on that handout. So like we don't do extractions, for example.
I understand.
Regular dentist has to do those, but we can do a lot of things.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Request Clear Spring. Please come forward, introduce yourself. Good morning.
Susan Buchanan, Director, Office of Grant Management, and with me this morning, I have Juanita Grimm.
Actually, I'm
No.
Christy Hickson.
For the record,
I've talked to Juanita, but-
Juanita's in the gallery.
I've talked to Juanita, but never seen her in person, so my apologies.
No, I'm Christy Hickson.
We're here this morning because the Clear Spring Clear Spring District Historical Association has submitted a hotel rental tax grant application requesting $31,650 towards the cost of restoring water services in the historical Plum Grove Mansion. The restoration of water service will allow the mansion to be opened up to visitors interested in the history of the site and promote tourism, benefiting local businesses. The total projected cost of this project is $36,650. The remaining portion of the expenses will be paid for with fundraising efforts by the association. The application has been reviewed by the Office of Grant Management, and the project meets the goals of the hotel rental tax grant program. The current balance of that fund is $1,004,957.09. I'll give Cynthia time to say a few comments or answer any questions.
Okay. I'm a member of the Clear Spring Historical Association.
I'll give Cynthia time to say a few comments or answer any questions.
Okay. I'm a member of the Clear Spring Historical Association, a board member, and I volunteer as a docent at Plum Grove. Plum Grove has been open every month this year except for January, which was scheduled, and March, which we had to close because that was the first month we didn't have water and we didn't have a porta pot that we could have available, and it had snowed and was very icy, so we had to close for that week. But over the other months, we have welcomed over 450 guests to Plum Grove in spite of not having water. Our fundraising efforts have been greatly affected by the loss of water. We usually sell concessions each month. However, we've not been able to. We've not been able to open our modern kitchen to offer that. Our first annual Clear Spring District Fall Festival was a few weeks ago. Last year, we celebrated the 200th anniversary of Clear Spring with a similar event, and were able to sell concessions and open it up to vendors to be there. This year, we could not sell any concessions, and we had to turn away vendors because we were not able to offer them water that they needed. Our Christmas by Candlelight is coming up in December. It's December 17th and 18th, where we expect about 200 visitors. We usually offer refreshments, which would be very challenging without water at the mansion. Another draw to our facility is our beautiful roses. If you've ever been there, you've seen over 150 varieties of roses, many which are very old and very rare. We also have an 1800s garden that several ladies, our Monday crew, takes care of. Our gardeners this year have had to bring in their own water to take care of those
flowers and plants. Many of them are senior citizens having to haul that in. So it's been a challenge for them to be able to take care of our gardens and our roses. But they were successful at it, but it wasn't an easy task. So I'm here on behalf of the Clear Spring District Historical Association to respectfully ask that the grant to repair the water main be approved to allow us to offer indoor plumbing to our guests, water for our gardeners, and the ability to offer concessions at our events, and much more. Thank you for your consideration.
How long would it take to complete this if you had the funding?
That I'm not sure. I think we have a contractor who is ready to start as soon as they can get whatever the.
But it wouldn't be by Christmas then?
I don't know. It would be nice. It would be it would be a wonderful Christmas gift if we could. I know we have the right-of-way because we have a right-of-way to come back the lane to the property. So that is, sometimes can be a challenge, but having that already in place, we are a creative bunch, so if we don't have it by Christmas, we will still do Christmas by candlelight.
I'd motion to approve 31,650.
Is there a second?
What happened? What happened?
What happened? The original water was put in over 40 years ago. They tapped into a water line off of Draper Road, and over time, the water line has crushed, and there was a leak. And in trying to figure out where it was, they found out it was under a water source. So there's no way to sleeve through the original, and there was a lot of environmental issues that we would have to do. We should be able to tap in directly off of Broad Fording and come straight back the lane, which will make an easy path for the water.
Okay, Randy, was that a motion?
It was.
Second.
First and second, any further discussion?
Just a comment, Christy, I think I met you at last year's 200th anniversary of Clear Spring. I think you were dressed in a period attire, and that was my first time inside of Plum Grove. Beautiful facility, and there were lots of things going on. It wasn't just showing people around the house. The grounds were abuzz with activity. So this is a great asset to the community and a good project.
Okay, no further discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Next up, hotel rental tax funding for the House on Jonathan Street documentary. Please come forward and introduce yourselves. Need another chair? Welcome, everybody. Please introduce yourselves.
Russ Hodge, Three Roads Communications.
Patrick Hodge, Three Roads Communications, producer and cinematographer.
I'm Dan Spedden, President of the Hagerstown, Washington County Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Susan Buchanan, Director, Office of Grant Management. I'll go ahead and introduce the item, and then we'll let our guest here give some more details about this project. We're here this morning because the Hagerstown, Washington County Convention and Visitors Bureau has submitted a request for hotel rental tax funding to gain an underwriting credit for a documentary film related to the history and culture of Washington County entitled The House on Jonathan Street. The amount of funding requested for this project is $50,000, and the total projected cost of the project is $100,000. The remaining portion of the expenses will be paid for by the Convention and Visitors Bureau. This application has been reviewed by the Office of Grant Management, and the project does meet the guidelines and goals of the Hotel Rental Tax Grant Program. Current balance of that fund, as stated a couple minutes ago, was $1,004,957 minus the $31,000 award that was just approved.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your support of Plum Grove. The CVB sponsors their events, and we buy a lot of extra advertising for them. They're a great asset. There's a pretty strong hotel market in Clear Spring now, so it's a nice tie-in. The CVB buys a lot of advertising. We buy TV once in a while, but TV is here and then it's gone, and we've never underwritten a film before, and this is something we really want to try. But it's a heavy lift for us, And we've got a lot of entities to support. We support lodging, food and beverage, retail, transportation. The heritage tourist is what will be attracted to this kind of visit. The heritage tourist is generally a higher wage earner. They stay longer and they spend more money. So we always push our historic sites, our museums, out to the heritage tourist market, and that's who we'll be reaching with this. If we buy this agreement, we will own like a piece of the film in the front and the back, and it'll go wherever the film goes. It's not like you bought a commercial and it played for 3 weeks and it was done. Wherever this film is seen around the world, our message will appear at the beginning and ending of it. So it's an exciting prospect for us, and it will attract the tourism market that we most desire. But again, it's a heavy lift, $100,000 in one campaign. So we were wanting to partner with the hotel rental tax program to do that, and we're here today to try to convince you of that.
We have been working on the film now for a couple of years. The jumping off point of the film is the restoration of the cabin on Jonathan Street. We're using that as a device to relate the history of African-American history and history itself in the Hagerstown, Washington County area. Certainly don't need to educate you all what a hotbed of history has happened here over the past couple hundred years. That will all be related to a national public television audience. To reference what Dan said, in terms of demographics, public TV viewers are the best educated, highest income viewers of any TV networks out there. So you will be reaching a wonderful targeted demographic, the type of people who have the wherewithal and the inclination to actually come here and spend time touring the different sites. In terms of what we've shot, we've already done about 40 interviews, including some of the people in this room. For the documentary, we have shot at many of the major tourist sites, everything from the Aviation Museum to Hager House to John Brown's Farm, and we're in the process now of putting together a rough cut of the documentary itself. The program is expected to air probably a couple thousand times on public TV stations all around the country.
I guess I do have a question. It appears CVBC and the county will be the only contributors to this. Did you reach out to the city?
I have not. My first thought was to go to the hotel rental tax, for a partnership. We have received ARPA funds from the city that we're using for marketing. But none of that's dedicated specifically to the film.
Also, we have received a production tax credit from the state. So there's funding that comes from there. One of the Bowman Foundations has given us money through the Community Foundation here in Washington County as well. So.
And how, have you reached out to any of the other local entities that could possibly be of benefit to the documentary? Or, I mean, you talk about the cabin. Are there going to be any other things involved in the documentary discussions?
We are doing, well, here's a perfect example. Yesterday we came up with some images of John Brown's Farm when it was owned by the Black Elks after World War II, which I don't think anybody has seen, and it was through research that we've done. So yes, the cabin is a part of it. It is a jumping off point to tell the story of the entire area, the entire region.
And how that entire area has also impacted the rest of the country too, and how the impact that Hagerstown has had on the Civil War, and how just in the rest of the United States history is actually, Hagerstown has played a major role in the United States history. We want to tell that story so people can come here and experience it themselves and spend money here.
A question I have, you have mentioned several times how important this documentary is to the Black history in Washington County, and we have a museum who's dedicated to that, the Dolman Museum, but you didn't mention them at all in your comments. I'm wondering what is your relationship like with them? And in my mind, that's the Dolman Museum. If you're doing a documentary on Black history, that should be a great source of information for you. And
Agreed, yeah, we have talked to
haven't
them.
been
As a matter of
mentioned.
fact, we've interviewed Janice Kelsch, who is one of their board members. She's actually in the highlight video that I hope that you may have seen. We have had discussions with them. They seem to want to have editorial control over the documentary, which, because of contractual obligations that we have with public TV and other entities, we're not able to provide. And also, to clarify what you said, the documentary is about African-American history in the Hagerstown, Washington County area, but it's also about all history in the Hagerstown, Washington area. So it's not just African-American history. Dolman, we would love to partner with, and I'm assuming that should we receive the funding, you're okay today, that we will be able to talk to them and partner with them.
I had a question. I actually had the same question Terry had of, have you gone to the city? You've answered that. It seems to me like you're asking the county for half of what you need when there are probably other invested parties in this. Also, the home, see, in my mind, when I first heard about all this, I was thinking like the focus was on the cabin. And one of the questions I thought about was, it's my understanding that that's now under private ownership. And it sounds like you're selling this documentary with that being the focus. And so I was curious if any of them have invested in the program. And not knowing anything about how TV works, will somebody receive royalties from this plane?
Well, I'll let the producers answer that part of the question, but just to give from my perspective, what I'm trying to do is to elevate the profile of our community, our entire county, as a preferred destination for heritage tourists. Whether or not they drive down Jonathan Street and actually see the cabin is inconsequential. When they land here and check into the hotel, I already won. So we're not really selling the cabin site as something visitor-friendly. It's the catalyst, the launch point for this whole greater story. And it is a really good story, a very compelling story. But I'm interested in raising, like, if I say this correctly again, the profile of our community as a preferred destination for travelers. That I'm looking at a much bigger picture than any one or two historic sites. There's a lot to see here. And if someone out in Texas or California is watching this documentary and they're compelled to visit, that'd be amazing.
And then how about the, I mean, who stands to make money off of this plane, wherever it's played? What?
This will be airing on public TV. There is no money to be made with public TV. We provide them with the program fully produced and fully underwritten. So there are no royalties. The stations don't pay us to air the program. They don't pay a license fee. If there are any royalties, they are minimal in the hundreds of dollars per year for either streaming income or for sales to educational institutions. It's not, we are not doing this to get rich. We have been self-funding this for 2 years right now and have spent upwards of about $200,000 personally on this project. This is not a wealth-generating endeavor. Where the wealth is to be made, frankly, is exactly as Mr. Spedden said. You have a wealthy traveler from Texas or California or Indiana who sees this, did not know the story, did not know the contributions from the area to the history of the United States, and says, honey, let's get in the car and go there and let's spend a week there. And they stay here at the hotels and eat at the restaurants, and you get the tax revenue from it. So frankly, that's a much larger amount of money than anything potentially son can make from producing this documentary.
You all live in Washington County?
Frederick.
I have you done, Charlie?
Yeah.
I have a couple quick ones. So basically, it would be fair to summarize this as a tourism documentary for Washington County.
No, it's a historical, fact-based documentary about Washington County using the Jonathan Street cabin as a jumping-off point. Now, if somebody watches it and decides that they want to visit here because of the wealth of historical sites and stay at the hotels and spend their money here, that's a natural outcome, particularly when you're dealing with the public television viewer who is highly educated and very well off.
But the object is educate on the history and tourism, correct? Yeah.
Educate on history, tourism is an outcome of that.
Right.
perhaps.
And then you mentioned, it says here, you know, you want 50,000, CVB is doing a 50,000, but you just said you have over 200,000 invested.
Correct.
Where did that money come
We're
from?
hoping to make it up from other donations, or frankly, we'll bite the bullet on it. We've done it before.
But you wouldn't do it I mean, I'm just being devil's advocate. You wouldn't do it to lose money. You figure you'll get that 200 back somewhere.
Yes, yeah.
I think that's where I was going with who's going to benefit from this ultimately, because you're not doing it for free. I was in business for 24 years, and you don't do something just to do it to be nice.
No, this
Alone.
is, no, I'm hoping to get other donations.
I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just asking
No,
curious questions.
I
yeah.
understand completely. It's a legitimate question. And the answer is, we're hoping to go to other foundations, and frankly, this will give us credibility to go to other foundations to get it done.
Gotcha.
I would be more apt to, if somebody else was putting money into it, the city, I think I would be more apt to be positive about it.
The state has put money into it. Tax credit, which is worth $50,000 to us.
You know, I'm a little on the fence on this one, but I think it's in the name of history of Washington County and tourism. I think I'd be okay with it.
It's more than Hagerstown. It's all the history of the whole county. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
That's
Washington
why you're
And
coming
you know
from.
what got me really interested? Did you watch the documentary Grant? I was riveted to that. And after every, episode, it was Visit Spotsylvania County, and I was so jealous of them. Like people all over the country are talking about this documentary, and they're owning it. So I want to own a piece of this one, and I want to watch it on TV, and I want Spotsylvania County to be a little jealous of what
And
we're
Washington County will lead it and end it. Is that what we just said?
The credit
It'll
will-
say Washington County.
Yeah, in the beginning and at the end of every broadcast of it.
Commissioners, what's your pleasure? Is there a motion to support?
I'd motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second, just for a little discussion. I'll be voting no on the project. I think it can be a worthwhile project. When you say this is a historical, fact-based documentary, I think you need to work with our local museum on Black History Museum that details history of the Jonathan Street as well. I know we have a board member of the Dolman Black Heritage Museum in this room, and I think Mr. Ward has always been the most approachable person to speak with. So if you're having some difficulty, maybe other aspects of the project might need to be reexamined. I think the city may also have an interest in taking part of this. It'll benefit the city as well and tell the city's history. But I would encourage you to get those two organizations on board as well, and I can maybe support something after that.
We would certainly hope to have them involved, and we'll be reaching out again after this. To be clear, we have interviewed over a dozen members of the community so far as well.
Okay, I have a first and second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
3-2, the motion fails. Thank you, folks. Next up, grant guidelines, nonprofit surplus funding.
Good morning again.
Hey, welcome back, Susan.
Susan Buchanan, Director, Office of Grant Management. I'm here this morning to present grant guidelines for the nonprofit surplus funding. As you sure recall, 2 weeks ago, I was here asking for a consensus to move forward to develop a grant program guidelines for the distribution of the surplus funding that has been allocated to assist local nonprofits. The Office of Grant Management has drafted guidelines for the distribution of these funds, and is here today seeking approval to move forward with soliciting applications and overseeing the review process. These applications will be reviewed by an ad hoc committee comprised of 4 members of the existing Community Organization Funding Committee and an additional appointee to represent Commissioner Baker, whose COF appointee is unable to serve on this additional committee. The newly formed committee will review submitted applications and make recommendations for grant awards, and these recommendations will be presented to the Board of County Commissioners for final approval at a future date. I did include in your packet a set of guidelines, proposed guidelines for this program. I just wanted to go over and comment on a few items on this and seek your input, and looking for a consensus ultimately to move forward with these guidelines. As you can see, I have general eligibility and eligibility outlined on this document. I tried to make it as encompassing as possible to allow area nonprofits to be able to apply for this funding. The difference from the existing Community Organization Funding Committee, this does not require being on the county's 1108 list. So this is open to all nonprofits who are located in Washington County and serve Washington County citizens. If I go along and if there's any questions, please stop me. I'm just moving over the highlights of this document. I did include that a restriction that the organizations may only submit one request for funding through this program, and this restriction would include those organizations who have already been funded through the surplus funding, the original $3 million. I have an item in here talking about requests being capped at a certain amount, and I just wanted to get some input from this board today. I remember in some of the discussion over the last several weeks, someone may have mentioned a proposed cap, and I'm not sure which commissioner it was, so I apologize.
I believe I may have said that. Yeah.
So I've included that there, but I just wanted to get some discussion on that to see what the amount what desired amount we would be looking at for a cap. If that's a consensus.
Mr. Baker, did you have your appointee ready or confirmed, or?
It will be later today.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you. Oops.
So if you're interested in including a cap, I can give a little information, just general information about having a cap on a grant. Indulge me. We do have caps on, we have the 2 major grants that go through my office. The Gaming Commission grant does have a cap on it. I think it's $100,000 per project. Now, an organization can have more than one project there, so that kind of gives a little leeway to go above that $100,000. And then the community organization funding that you're familiar with as well, there is no cap in funding amounts for that particular program. So what I've seen when you do have a review board committee, it's not necessarily necessary to have a cap, just because by nature of the reviewers, they do look at, their goal is the maximum amount of good projects being funded. So if they see somebody coming in at a very high amount that's going to take money from some of these other applications that they think are worthwhile, they do usually kind of self-govern in that. But if you are looking to have maybe a ceiling so that some organizations can have an idea what's a reasonable request, that's something that you could put in a cap.
So if it's just hypothetical, we did a cap, and the committee recommends what, and we always have the option, if we had an emergency situation where someone just needed more than that cap, we always have the option to request, a consensus of adjusting that after it's done, right?
The way this is designed, these recommendations would come forward back to you again, and if for some reason there was a cap, let's say there was a cap of $250,000, but there was an organization that had a request on for $400,000, and this board felt that they wanted to fund that at a higher amount, they ultimately could make that decision.
Initially, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking of a $100,000 cap. I know somebody else was looking at less than that, but I do like the comment you made that the body that makes this decision kind of govern itself. But for the sake of saying it, I'm going to just say it again, that we received another request from the local Mason-Dixon Council, Boy Scout Council. And they are pressed to have a decision made. And by the end of this month, I believe. And so here we are. I mean, a lot of these guidelines we could have used ourselves to go ahead with some of these requests that were being made and use them ourselves as a guideline, some of which I had thought about. But here we have a nonprofit, and I can think of a couple who are pressed for time to have a decision made. And again, I think I said the last time, I feel like we're shirking our duty here by, we started a process and then we decided to turn it over to somebody else. And I know we're already in the midst of this, and so it's probably not going to make a difference. But I just wanted to say that we got a couple things going on that people are pressed for money and spoke up. We still haven't touched the, even with, I mentioned the last time, with all the requests we've received, we've not used up all that money that we still have, unless some have come in since then, and that didn't include this request for the Boy Scouts. So anyway, that's just my general comment. I would be good with 100,000, but I also trust that the people making the decision would kind of make sure everybody got a decent share.
Sort of the way I feel about it is, the cap is important, obviously, but I'm trusting you, this committee, to properly get the answers that we need to know, as Commissioner Burke was just saying, okay, this is an emergency, here's a request, we're going to possibly do that, but I'd like to see, and I'm sure they're going to do this, properly see why they need the money, how much they need, and is there another option? There might be other options out there that they can help them get the rest of their money. Those are the kind of things that I can't answer, that I'm hoping this committee, with your help, will dig into and have us some good information. I mean, sure, there's emergencies, and sometimes you just need money, or something nasty is going to happen. But, you know, I think I'd put my trust in your department and this committee to oversee that, to make sure that all this is justified and there's not another outlet, or do you really need that much money, or is there another way we can do it with half that much money? So I think a cap's important, and it could, you know, but I'm hoping this committee just won't give it to them because we got a cap of 50, 100, 200, whatever it is, you know, just because we have it. Does that make any sense? I guess it does, yeah.
I think a cap is also important for another reason. One, it ensures or offers a way to support as many different nonprofits and all their different missions as possible. Right. But it also gives the nonprofit an idea of what is appropriate to ask for. I've had a lot of nonprofits reach out to me, and some of the requests that we've had for small, couple $1,000s, some requests for $500,000. So the nonprofit that's wanting to apply doesn't know, and I don't want to be in a situation where everyone thinks the sky's the limit, because it is a large amount of money that we're giving out, and we have maybe 3 nonprofits that apply for $500,000 each, and that eats up just almost all of the money that's available. Maybe, I don't want to say they wasted the request in any way, but did they submit a request that maybe wasn't realistic for the money that is available and all of the other applicants? We don't know if we'll have a dozen people, nonprofits apply, or 100 nonprofits apply. So I think the idea of a cap also helped define the grant a little better as to what is reasonable to ask for.
Are you looking for a cap amount?
I'm looking for just a direction on, I feel like I'm getting a consensus that it sounds like cap sounds like a good idea. I would suggest no less than 100,000, just because you want to make sure you have the ability to make an impact with the funding. Maybe even up to 250. That would be good.
I mean, I'd be fine with 100 or 250 because I'd rely on them, not just because it's 250 requests, we're not going to just give them 250 without properly going through a process and seeing if it's, but I think 100 minimum for me.
I'd be good with 100.
Commissioners?
I'm good with
Yeah,
100.
Is there, yeah, 100,000 I'm okay with. Is there a deadline to apply?
There will be a deadline to apply. It's all going to be contingent upon when the application is released. It will be advertised,
Got
press release, the normal amount of mailing list sent out. There's a lot, organizations already know it's about to be, it's coming. So-
And Susan, those organizations who've already sent an email request in, do they need to reapply, or is their email request or their letter that was mailed in, is that their application, is that sufficient?
But we'll notify all them because you've assembled an
They'll be on the
accurate
list.
list, correct?
Yes, they will definitely be on the list to get the notification of this process. And then, of course, they would have to have answer the same questions everybody would, just so it's a level.
So commissioners, double check your email and send everything to Chris, though, to make sure we didn't skip over anybody. So you're looking for a motion to move forward with the
Yes.
cap of minimum?
And if there's any questions about the rest of it, I didn't go, I don't,
Yeah.
if you wanted me to go over the rest of it.
I'd motion to move forward with nonprofit SERPA funding with a cap of 100,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Susan,
Are we gonna,
Susan put a lot of work into this, so I appreciate it.
are we gonna address the scout issue at some point? I mean, or are they
board
just
can
gonna be
address
told,
it.
well, we'll probably do it?
Okay, next on the agenda, intergovernmental cooperative purchase. Rick Curry, Major. I see our sheriff in the audience. Welcome. How many more days? Yes, sir. 52 long days. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning. Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing.
Major Craig Rowe, Warden, Detention Center.
The subject before you is intergovernmental cooperative purchase, INTG 22-0098, for rental of electronic monitoring equipment and services for Washington County Sheriff's Office for the Day Reporting Center. Recommended motion to authorize by resolution the approval of rental of electronic monitoring equipment services from BI Correctional Services Incorporated, Boulder, Colorado, at a unit price of $2.80 per unit per day for Lock 8 and Lock 8 XT, $3.95 per day per unit for SL2 and SL3, and $6.20 per day per unit for TAD Cellular, and 50 cents per day per unit for SmartLink Verify, based on a contract awarded by Omnia Partners of the City of Mesa, Arizona. And the RFP is listed. It's a contract with Omnia Partners. The Code of Public Law does allow for this board to participate in goods and services, even though we weren't a part of the original contract, as long as we can show that it benefits the administrative cost, which it will be because we don't have to process a bid, the evaluation, all that. And the term of the contract is from May 16th, 2022, ending May 16th, 2027, with an option for 2 additional one-year periods through May 16th, 2029. You can see the fiscal impact as far as the budget, where the money is budgeted for the services and the equipment. We have concurrence, and the alternative would be to process our own bids. And we also have the bid sheet from BI Correctionals. I'm sorry about it. I barely read it, but I try to make it as dark as possible. Are there any questions?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
5-0. Rick Curry, welcome back.
Again, Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing.
Major Craig Rowe, Warden, Detention Center.
Subject to intergovernmental cooperative purchase, INTG-22-0099, radio equipment for the Washington County Sheriff Detention Center. Moved by resolution, the approval for the purchase and installation of radio system and all related equipment, hardware, for public safety, West Berlin, New Jersey, at the contract unit prices total $172,500.95, based on the contract awarded by the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. Contracts listed. The sheriff's equipment that they're currently using they dated back to 2004. Parts are getting hard to come by. They have been buying parts off of eBay. The new system will allow them to communicate throughout the county with other agencies. And the Code of Public Law does allow for this procurement, even though we were not part of the original process. This is a contract that was effective from June 21 to 2021 through June 21st of 2024. 2 additional 3-year optional renewals. Funding is in the department's capital plan budget, as you see listed. We have concurrences. And we also have the quoted price sheets from Tactical Public Safety.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Next on the agenda, contract award, facilities, design service, Scott Hobbs, Sheriff Mondor. Please come forward. I have you listed on there. We're not letting you off easy. We're going to grill him today, folks.
Good morning, Scott Hobbs, Director of Engineering.
Sheriff Doug Mullins, Washington.
And we are here to recommend the board award the contract for the facility design services for Washington County Patrol Division and Detention Center renovations to the responsible proposer, L.S. Grimm of Hagerstown, Maryland, with the lowest total fee of $1,673,567. The request for proposal was issued under the Facilities Design Services Contract, PUR 1481. One proposal was received. The team includes L.S. Grimm, BFM Architects, Matonic and Associates, Frederick Seibert and Associates, and Boggs Environmental Consultants. The first phase of the project is the renovation of the Special Services Building at Ico Way so that the Patrol Division can move into the facility. We provided an attachment. There's an aerial map showing the 3 areas at the facility. The second phase of the project involves moving the Detention Administration, Programs Unit, and training staff into the existing Patrol Division building. And the third phase of the project involves renovating the Female Housing Unit and existing Detention Center Administration area into a female housing unit with cells rather than dormitory housing, putting in a unit for juvenile offenders, and changes to the control centers. This is a capital improvement plan project and assumes the use of speed camera revenue of $500,000 per year. And as part of the motion, we'd also like to see that a purchase order will be issued for the full amount of the contract. Currently in the CIP, there's available funding through FY23 to pay for any of the work that would be done through that period of time, and then we have additional funding in FY24 and 25. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Sheriff Mullendorf with some more information about the project.
Sure. So last year, the legislature actually passed where anyone who comes in to report a crime or to speak to a deputy must be permitted to do so in privacy. We do not really have the space to do that currently. Currently, we take them back into the training room if no one is there, but most of the time it's being used for other things. We kind of have to rob Peter to pay Paul. The existing patrol division was renovated in 2002, and we've used every nook and cranny, including a mezzanine area for the people that we have. We've taken away all of the conference rooms. We now, those are now offices just because we've expanded the services that we have. And then the problem in the detention center is the dormitory style for females is truly a problem and causes a liability for the county by having them in a dormitory style housing as opposed to in cells like the males. The other part of that is we're housing more and more juveniles in our facility, and by federal law and state law, we have to have sight and sound separation from all adults, not just female or not just male, all adults. We really do not have the facilities to handle that. We've been kind of moving things around and putting them in on the female side, but having to move the females into other areas. And so that's part of what we want to do, trying to look toward the future and make sure that we're in compliance with the law.
Just out of curiosity, how much revenue do those cameras produce per year? Do you know that?
Right off the top, I can't tell you right now, Commissioner. It's right around the 500,000, might be just a little bit more than that.
Was some of that money supposed to go to the school system?
No.
Or was it always for,
No, it originally went for the construction of the Public Safety Training Center. They moved monies around and used that for that purpose. And then now it's being redirected to assist with this project.
Commissioners, any more comments?
No, no, I just had one. How long is this going to take to do all this? How many years?
It's going to take a while. You know, the first part of the project is what we're going to concentrate on right now, and that's to move the patrol building up and then move there's no cost for moving the detention center administration and programs unit over to the existing building. But the biggest cost in construction, I think, is going to be for the renovation of the jail portion, and, you know, we may have to look at that in future years.
So again, it's a phased project, but we like to see the facility design services move forward for all of the phases, the plan for the budgeting and the schedule.
I'd motion to move forward to contract for facility design service for the Washington County Patrol Division Detention Center to the responsible bidder, L.S. Grimm in Hagerstown, for a total fee of $1,673,567.
For a second? I have a first and a second. Any further discussion?
I wanted to say, Sheriff, a couple of years ago, you reminded us how important that building was to your long-term plan, not just yours, but the Sheriff's Department's long-term plan at that location. So thank you for that. When did Tandy Drive become ICO West?
That was when,
2 years ago.
actually, trying to think the name of the company, the roofing company actually took over that facility, and they had asked the county to change the name to ICO Way, which is their company name, and we agreed to allow them to do that, just as being a good partner.
Okay, I have first and a second.
was this put out to public bid?
It was originally with our PUR 1481 was all brought. And then there's 5 consultants that are on that list. From there, we send it out to the 5 consultants. So originally, the PUR 1481 was brought forward.
All right.
And this is under that.
Okay,
It was
any
good to see
further
that it
questions?
stays local.
Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, discussion of zoning process. Joe Baker, please come forward.
Morning, Commissioners. Jill Baker, Director of the Department of Planning and Zoning. Stemming off of conversation that we had 2 weeks ago, the Commissioners had requested that we come back and provide sort of a synopsis of the zoning process and how the various boards and commissions that we have are integrated into that process. So that's really what the presentation is today, is basically a clarification of that. So to start off with, the power to zone and rezone property actually lies with the Maryland General Assembly of the state of Maryland. They have adopted laws that delegate that power to the local municipal and county governments. The laws require that we act in certain ways when exercising that zoning and planning authority. Any jurisdiction that exercises authority must first adopt a comprehensive plan and appoint a Board of Zoning Appeals. Legislative bodies such as this commission are specifically prohibited from serving on the Board of Zoning Appeals. Local governments, we exercise our zoning authority in 2 distinct ways, both legislatively first legislatively by enacting the zoning ordinance and the zoning map, as well as in a quasi-judicial manner during the rezoning cases. That way, when rezonings come in, we have to follow certain legal principles, including due process. challenges to these legislative actions or to rezonings then are appealed to the Circuit Court of Maryland, or excuse me, of Washington County. So as I said, before zoning can be implemented, you must first adopt a comprehensive land use plan for the county. The development of this comp plan is the responsibility of the Planning Commission. Planning Commission is appointed by this body. It is 7 members, including an ex officio from this group. They mostly deal with, again, the comprehensive plan is their first and primary responsibility. However, they also deal with site plans, subdivisions, approving those types of things as they come through. Development, as I said, of that plan is the responsibility of the Planning Commission. It starts with community outreach in order to ascertain the needs of our local community and to manage the impacts of development. Maryland requires that the comprehensive plans include several analysis areas regarding development impacts, including land use, water resources, transportation, community facilities, and others. These analyses are then used to create long-term goals and policies for land use within the county. That draft plan is created and again presented to the public for review and comment. Currently, we are in the process of finishing up that draft plan with the Planning Commission in order to put that out for review and comment. Once the comp plan is adopted, the jurisdiction then starts the process of delineating zoning districts and zoning policies that implement those goals of the comprehensive plan. So implementation of the ordinance is when local elected officials define specifically where the various land uses that occur are best suited based upon several variables, including existing land use, location of infrastructure, location of environmentally sensitive areas, and the overall goals of the comprehensive plan. There are many ways that zoning can be implemented, but basically a determination is made by this local body to determine whether a specific land use should be permitted, conditionally permitted, which we also call a special exception, permitted as an accessory use, or not permitted at all in any given zoning district. The zoning ordinance also includes basic development standards such as building setbacks, lot areas, lot widths, buffering requirements, so forth and so on. This is where the Board of Zoning Appeals starts to come into play. In zoning matters, the Board of Zoning Appeals is primarily concerned with variances and special exceptions. A variance, by definition, is a relaxation of terms from the zoning ordinance for what we term distance or dimensional requirements. Again, that's your setbacks, your buffer requirements, things like that. And they have to show that there's either been practical difficulty or undue hardship. And there are definitions of both of those terms within the zoning ordinance that applicants must provide to the Board of Zoning Appeals as part of their application and testimony in order to provide evidence that one of those two has been accomplished. Now, the special exception use, or as I mentioned, the conditional use, is a grant of a specific use that would not be appropriate generally or without restriction. It also has to be based upon the finding that the use conforms to the comprehensive plan and is compatible with the existing neighborhood. So in sort of a legal mumbo-jumbo terms, what that is it says that an enumerated special exception use is predetermined by the local legislative body, which is this body, to be appropriate for a specific district unless there are facts and circumstances that show that the particular use proposed at the particular location proposed would have any adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated with such a special exception use, irrespective of its location within the zone. A lot of legal mumbo-jumbo basically saying that That opinion has then been delegated by this body to the Board of Zoning Appeals to determine whether or not that use is appropriate for the location that they're asking for it. There are several principles that are set forth within, I should say, there's several strategies or criteria within the zoning ordinance whereby the Board of Zoning Appeals is required to deliberate upon. I'm not going to list them all out, but there's a whole list in the zoning ordinance that talks about that. So just to give you an idea of the expanse, or extent, I should say, of the powers of the Board of Zoning Appeals, as I said, they are there to hear and decide special exception uses that the board is required to hear. They are to be available to authorize a variance from certain dimensional requirements, again, based upon that practical difficulty or undue hardship test. They are to hear any cases and appeals where it is alleged that there is an error in any order, requirement, or decision or determination made by an administrative official in regard to enforcement of the zoning ordinance or any other ordinances that the county has. We often refer to that as administrative error. The board is also empowered to adopt and promulgate such rules and regulations as it shall deem necessary in the conduct of its hearings and the issuance of its decisions. They have done so, and that is, again, iterated in the zoning ordinance and laid out. The Board of Zoning Appeals acts in a quasi-judicial manner as required by law. So certain legal principles, including due process, apply to its proceedings. That's why, pursuant to state law, decisions to the Board of Zoning Appeals are directly appealed to the Circuit Court of Washington County and not to this body. This body has been deemed to already have deliberated upon that by delegating that authority to the Board of Zoning Appeals with the criteria that's listed in the zoning ordinance to be their reasonings or findings of fact. That's a very, very broad overview, sort of how zoning works. Again, the two primary committees that we use are the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals. We as staff act as liaisons to those boards and commissions. And obviously as staff to the Board of Commissioners when rezonings and so forth take place. So I hope that clears things up a little bit. If anybody out there listening is interested and would like a more in-depth explanation of this, the Maryland Department of Planning has a very good planning commissioner training course available on their website. Actually, our Planning Commission members and our Board of Zoning Appeals members are required by law to take that course and complete that course as part of their participation in those groups. To my knowledge, I think all of those members have taken that. We might have one that just recently got appointed that may not have finished it yet, but they are working through that. Happy to answer any questions that you may have at this point.
Jill, back earlier, you had mentioned that you used the word delegated from the county commissioners to the zoning board. Would you go over that section again?
Basically, what it is that when you are adopting a zoning ordinance or readopting or amending a zoning ordinance, when you look at the uses that are permitted within any specific district, you are deciding as this body whether they should be permitted, whether they should be permitted conditionally, accessory, or not permitted. So if you would decide that a use should be conditionally permitted, and I don't know if you really want to hear that really long mumbo jumbo definition again, But if you decide that it's a conditional use that seems appropriate but may need to be restricted in some way, you're basically delegating authority then to the Board of Zoning Appeals to hold a public hearing, to review the criteria that are listed within the zoning ordinance, and thereby make a decision on that conditional zoning.
For the county commissioners.
Yes, effective.
Yeah, because I thought the last time we had a little discussion, or at some point, maybe I misunderstood, I thought it was told, I was under the impression that the state provided that authority. So should we have voted on, I don't know when the county commissioners decided to let the zoning board delegate for us.
When you adopted the zoning ordinance or any amendments thereto, that's where you make that decision. So it starts, technically, zoning powers start with the 10th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, which basically says that states have the power to have police powers. Zoning is considered a police power. So in Maryland, that authority rests with the Maryland General Assembly. They technically have all the power. They delegate that authority to you, the local jurisdictions, either county, municipal, whatever. You, as the county body, make the decisions for your own community through the zoning ordinance. When you adopt the zoning ordinance or any amendments thereof, that's where you're making the decision to say, yes, that use is appropriate for that district. Maybe that use is appropriate, but we would want to go through the Board of Zoning Appeals, have a public hearing, and make sure they meet the criteria. It's accessory, or no, it really should not be permitted within that district. So anytime we come in here with a zoning amendment that changes where the uses are permitted, that's the point where you're deciding, yes, no, maybe so.
And that's where we set the conditions that the board has to abide by.
Those conditions are set, I think partially by law.
Well, if we set the zoning,
No, I'm sorry. You set the zoning,
right.
absolutely. You
And so
set the
then
zoning.
whatever we set, that board or the next group, they have to abide by those, or they should abide by those conditions.
They should abide by whatever the criteria listed within the zoning ordinance say.
That we would create.
Yes. You
Okay.
and any applicable state law, yes.
Okay.
And the zoning ordinance, so the original zoning ordinance was adopted in 1973, right?
Yes.
So this goes back a long way. And there've been a number of amendments along the way. So you're right. So you amend the permitted uses or the special exceptions and all those things. That's what this board does when it amends the zoning ordinance. But the original zoning ordinance was from 1973, I believe.
Yes.
All right, so.
So Joe, if the commissioners wanted to make a change to zoning, can you outline how that process follows? The commissioner's role, the planning commissioner's role?
Yes.
If we're making a change to zoning, it doesn't sound like the BZA has an involvement.
No.
So can you explain that process?
So anytime we want to amend the zoning ordinance, whether it's us or anybody else, because typically we just follow the rules we apply to everybody, it starts with an application, basically saying what the ordinance or what the modification or amendment is, why we think that it's necessary, and then literally what the stricken or added text is or whatever. That information, we go through a two-part hearing process. The first part is going through the Planning Commission. The reason we go through the Planning Commission is because the zoning ordinance, again, stems from and is subject to the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is the holy grail of planning. So when the Planning Commission reviews that amendment, they are really reviewing it to determine whether or not we're being consistent with our comprehensive plan and our long-term goals and policies. That's why they're involved. They then, based upon their findings, make a recommendation to this board. They are advisory to you.
This board, yeah.
Correct, the Board of County Commissioners. They act in an advisory role and provide you a recommendation and their findings of why that recommendation is. This board then holds its own separate public hearing in order to take public testimony, to review the Planning Commission's recommendation and any other information that's presented to you during the public comment period, which is constantly open from the day that application comes in to the moment that the commissioner strikes the gavel that the hearing is closed. So you'll take all of that information into consideration, and then you make your decision. That's effectively the broad strokes of that process.
Okay. So I know we've had a couple conversations over the last several weeks on this process and how it works, and a lot of it stems from concerns that we've heard from the citizens, and I think I speak for us all when I say that we try to listen to those concerns and try and help the citizens out as best as possible. I think it's ironic that Commissioner Baker opened up his comments at the start of our meeting this morning talking about concerns that a citizen had addressed to him regarding a damaged foundation that they had from nearby blasting from construction of a warehouse. That's concerning. It's hopefully will be addressed. I know John has taken his orders. I hear a lot of concerns about other things, and we repeat some of those concerns. I hear concerns from citizens. Probably the number 3 concern I've heard as a commissioner first is probably all the things that happened during COVID, the tax increase, and then it's zoning issues, concerns that citizens have about things that are taking shape in their neighborhood, in their community, Washington County. And I think at the top of that list is things like warehouses and truck stops. And, you know, I have several different Herald Mail articles pulled up here going back to 2015 that talks about Washington County is a hub for child sex trafficking because of our proximity to Interstate 70 and 81 and truck stops in those communities. We hear a lot. There's an article about how dangerous Interstate 81 is and our constant effort to try and get funding to widen I-81 to 3 lanes. The headline is the most dangerous stretch of I-81 in the nation is here in Washington County. What's being done to improve safety? A unique spot is Washington County becoming a hub for child sex trafficking. And what is Washington County doing to address sex trafficking? Quite honestly, not a heck of a lot is the answer to that. And those are questions that go back to 2015. Talking about the safety again, you know, Interstate 81, we appeal all the time to state, federal officials for help with funding for Interstate 81. And we give them a list of reasons of why Interstate 81 needs widened, how dangerous it is, being first and foremost. It's 12 miles, runs through our county, but it's the most dangerous stretch of 81, the entire length of Interstate 81. And there's a quote here from the director of the Greater Hagerstown Committee who mentions, anytime you see a truck-car collision, it rarely ends up being good for the car because of physics. I think we've heard from our citizens, we've seen reporting, we have local business leaders in the community talk about those dangers and that we see, that we hear those concerns from our citizens as well. I think we need to do what we can to address that until the funding comes in for I-81. I'd like to see, let the other commissioners chime in as they will, I'd like to see an amendment to our zoning ordinance that would strike truck stops from something that can be considered by the Board of Zoning Appeals, and something for the Board of Zoning Appeals to take under consideration is maybe warehouses over a certain size, maybe 1 million square foot. Not that we're saying it can't ever be built, but that would add just another layer of review, consideration, that if that could go before the Board of Zoning Appeals. So I'd like to see those 2 changes. I think we've all heard the feedback from our citizens. We've read the headlines in the newspapers. We've heard the concerns, traffic, safety. There's environmental concerns about our karst geology, human trafficking in the county, and it all points to this type of construction that just brings that into our community. I think we need to be cautious. And those are concerns that have been levied long before I became a commissioner. But I think for those reasons, I'd like to see those changes to our zoning ordinance. And if the Planning Commission needs to review it, if that's the next step, that's A-okay. But
So what were the two amendments again?
I think we should strike truck stops from a special exception use, so then the Board of Zoning Appeals no longer hears those requests. And put an exception for warehouses. I'm thinking maybe 1 million square foot. You know, we need warehouses. We may have local businesses that need warehousing, and they need to, you know, build a warehouse. I don't want to restrict all warehouses, but maybe over a certain size, I think deserves some special consideration. I don't know about the rest of you, but that's a hot topic issue I've heard about, especially in the last year. And it's asking for an extra review for warehouses of that size.
Sorry. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, I don't work for the government. I don't work for big business. I'm supposed to be the people's voice at the table. And it's interesting that we have today is our Faces of Farming in here today. Because the one thing I've heard since I was seated was we're losing farmland. We're losing our rural feel in the community. It's constant. And when I was out throughout the communities, that's all you heard. And so I think these kind of limitations are important. We have that ability to set those limitations. And I think it's time to do something that would benefit the majority of the citizens of Washington County and not just, you know, a couple people.
And Susan, maybe you could help. Oh, I thought Susan was back. Okay. That's Susan? Yeah. Maybe you could help me. I don't know if you could just send me a location of an approximate 1 million square foot building, so I just have something to visualize what 1 million square foot is. I can do the math and all of that and figure out a square building, but I'd just like to have a million
Right up Wetzel Boulevard.
Okay.
For me, I'd need a whole lot more information. Nobody wants ag preservation any more than I do. I'm on the Ag Preservation Board. There's a lot of collateral damage from doing this. You know, 12 miles of 81. We're going to hear if we're going to get any money for 81, hopefully in the next month or two. But you still can't control the truck traffic from West Virginia and Pennsylvania. It still come rolling through there, and what we add to it, okay, that's more trucks. I get it. And I'm not a problem with, you know, these mega warehouses, you know, 1.5 million square feet. That might be a bit much. But then again, the honor collateral damage, because you could have a farmer that worked all of his life and nobody wants to take his farm over. It happens. It just happened. So they sell their farm. And it's in this right place to build a warehouse. So, you know, then I got to think about what's collateral damage from me taking away that farmer's rights to do anything. You know, the farmer could also, I would sooner see more money coming from development to go toward ag preservation. That way, there's a farmers in line waiting for ag preservation. They on that list every year, and they're never moving up the list. So, yeah, do we need more ag preservation? Sure do. But I don't think this is the solution to get more ag preservation. I mean, how many, we only had, I say only, it's a lot. 2% can be developed for warehouses in 300,000 acres, 2%, which is what, 6,000 acres? We're probably pushing that already. We're almost out of, the warehouse thing might take care of itself. Is that an accurate statement? I mean, we're running out of Susan Highway interchange, right? So I would sooner see some way to use that as a tool to help for more ag preservation maybe, because, and the traffic on 81, I mean, I don't think you're going to cure that until they fix 81, because you got Pennsylvania and West Virginia, it's 12 miles wide. They're rolling through there. Most of those trucks are heading to New York or the other direction. So,
Okay, Commissioners, can we? Yeah. Can we close this discussion up and give Jill some direction to move forward with something? Just, if not,
So Jill, what would our next step be if we decided to get this to the planning commission?
So basically, we would want a majority of the commissioners to give us direction that those are the amendments they want to see. Staff will draft those up, take those to the planning commission, and then provide you back with the staff report and the planning commission's recommendation.
I would support that.
Is that a motion?
no, you don't, it's just a consensus on this. That's one.
Yeah, I'm okay.
You do a motion.
They need to make a motion.
Motion.
To direct the filing of an application to amend the.
Or consensus to bring back the information, or a motion to bring, which is appropriate?
Well, normally you give Jill direction to make the changes, and she'd bring the proposed changes back, and then you would authorize the filing of the text amendment.
I think the proposed changes are kind of simple, straight from section 19.3, truck stops, add section 19.2, remove as a permitted use warehouses over. A suggestion is 1 million square feet, but maybe the planning commission, because they'll review it next, might increase or decrease that size. I would make a motion for those two changes. Ask Jill to start the process. Ask the planning commission to hear it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. 3-2. Jill, you have your directions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, agriculture faces of farming. Please come forward, introduce yourself.
Good morning. Happy Tuesday. It's another wonderful day in Washington County. It's absolutely beautiful outside. Just a little bit of rain, but that never stops the ag community. Today, I'm to present the Faces of Farming campaign. This is a marketing campaign that will last another about 8 months. And we'll reassess it at that time and determine the value and success. To this point, it has been received extremely well by the community, and people have the opportunity to learn about agriculture in their communities. Washington County's ag business represents the single largest industry in our community, with 48% of our land mass being in agriculture. We have over 900 operating farms with $153 million in sales of products sold. So the marketing campaign is designed to educate consumers, and today we are featuring 2 wineries. The alcohol wineries, breweries, and distilleries is probably one of the fastest growing segments in the ag industry today, and it certainly is being received well by the community and supported locally. But today we feature Red Heifer of Smithsburg and Blue Mountain Winecrafters of Funkstown. So PR, please roll that beautiful bean footage.
Hi, I'm Yvonne Ford, and we are at Red Heifer Winery in Smithsburg, Maryland. I co-own Red Heifer Winery with my husband, Kevin Ford. His family purchased this property in 1942, so we are the 5th generation to be here on this site. It has gone through many different iterations throughout time, originating as a peach orchard. They also grew some vegetables, then a dairy farm, and then my husband and I started the winery together. We first planted in 2010, and then we opened to the public in 2012. Here on our site, we have Chamberson, we have Concord, and we have Niagara. But about 2 miles down the road, we source with another local vineyard, and there we have Chardonnay, Chardonnay, Vidal Blanc, Blanc Frankish, Cabernet Franc, and a few other varietals. I think we were drawn to doing grapes because we were looking to do something to preserve the family farm. A lot of family farms end up being subdivided or sold out of the family, and we wanted to do something that would maintain the integrity of the property. And we talked to my husband's grandmother at the time and pitched the idea of wine, and as a huge wine lover, she gave us the blessing to get started on the vineyard and the winery project. To thank her for her kindness, we did name one of our wines after Kevin's grandmother, and it is the Edna May Chardonnay. For anybody who's looking to get into agriculture, I would tell them persevere. There are going to be hard times. There's going to be times where you're going to second guess yourself and you're going to have other people second guess you, but I tell you to persevere. Keep your head up, keep moving forward, set a target and aim for it. For the community, I would like for you to continue to shop local. Washington County is amazing for agriculture. We are known for our cherries, our peaches, our cantaloupes, our corn, our cheese. Come out to Washington County and enjoy everything that we have to offer here.
My name is Cindy Rao, and together with my husband Tim Rao, we own Blue Mountain Wine Crafters. Started out as a home brewing and winemaking supply store where I used to buy my supplies from the crack cork, and I ended up buying the business. And then we went on to get our license, and now we're a winery, and we're also very fortunate enough to have a license that allows us to have customers be able to make their own wine with us. And we also have a gift store that offers gifts for wine lovers and anything Maryland. We buy our grapes here locally from Matt and Mary Harsh from 78 Acres. We buy fruit, which strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, plums here from this farm. So we make some fruit wines. We also do white wines that are usually dry, Vidal Blanc, Chardonnay, Chardonnay. The red grapes, those are always the most sought after. So these are the Cab Franc, very high-end grapes. We do Petit Verdot, Chambourcin, Cab Franc, and Blanc Frankish. We've also done some whiskey barrel aged. We've entered the Governor's Cup with some of those wines, and we've done very well. We entered 5 this year, and we got 4 medals. We produce 1,560 gallons, 7,800 bottles, and 650 cases in 2021 of wine, which is small. That's why we're a boutique winery. It takes a lot of work with the small equipment we have. Our winery is so unique because it's handcrafted. The wine's handcrafted and it's small enough to be able to put love and tender care into every bottle. It's very important to me to buy local grapes and produce local wine. Supporting the locals will keep other businesses afloat also. We buy local cheese, local candy bars, and as many local things as we can at the store to offer to the customers. You know, it started out as a hobby, and it became a passion to me. You never work a day in your life when you're at a job you love. I'm very excited every day to be at work and just to see what we can produce.
Very good.
Thank you. Want me to continue?
Yeah, I guess you're up next, or?
Okay. Again, Leslie Hart, Washington County Department of Business Development. This marks the 12th year we are recognizing a local farm as Washington County's Farm of the Year. And it's pretty impressive that they fill that area behind me. That's the entire clan of the Bakers. And I'll tell you about them in just a minute. Washington County Farm of the Year showcases excellence in agriculture and promotes a greater understanding of the challenges faced by today's farmers. Production, conservation, preservation, community involvement, and dedication to farming and agriculture is the gold standard for this award. Previous winners include Creekbound Farms, Misty Meadow, Big Cork, Stonewall Angus, and the list goes on and on. I am pleased to tell you today that Baker Farms, LLC, is the recipient of the 2022-2023 Washington County Farm of the Year. We're going to get them all up here in a second. Baker Farms, LLC is located at 19427 Benevola Newcomer Road in Boonesboro. Little tiny road. It's a 171-acre farm dedicated to producing the highest quality corn and wheat and bedding to feed over 300 dairy cows. Additionally, the Bakers are farming another adjacent farm with 154 acres, and they rent another 700 acres, making them productive on over 1,000 acres in Washington County. Maryland is home to 42,000 cows spread across 320 farms throughout the state. In 2021, the Maryland dairy industry produced over 875 million pounds of milk and generated over $150 million in sales. Let me put that in perspective for you. 1 gallon of milk weighs about 8.6 pounds. So that means the dairy industry makes over 100 million gallons of milk. Milk is the first food any mammal experiences, and milk provides a rich food source. And over 1/3 of those Maryland dairy farms are located right here in Washington County, which makes this award today very special. This 4th-generation farm is owned by Brian and Terry Baker and operated by them and their six sons: Brian, Jonathan, Jamie, Nicholas, Nathan, and Matthew. The Baker family has had a presence since 1926 and started with Brian's grandfather. I believe farming is a calling and that it is in your blood and that it is an everyday job as a dairy farmer. It is not only a job, but a way of life. And that's Terry Baker said that, the mom of the whole clan back here. The Baker family have been involved in FFA, 4-H, local baseball teams, local food pantries, the Ag Expo and Fair. They assist local neighbors with nearby farms and farm-related questions, projects, manpower, equipment sharing. The Baker boys love farming and taking care of their animals in the land. Congratulations, again, to the Baker Farms LLC and the entire Baker family for your 2022-2023 Farm of the Year.
Congratulations.
I'd like Terry to introduce everybody before we get a picture.
Come on. I'm Terry Baker. This is my husband, Brian Baker.
Run them down.
All right. This is Brian, the oldest, and then Nick and his wife Danny, and Nathan and his girlfriend Helen, and Matthew and his girlfriend Faith, Jamie and his wife Brooke, and Jonathan and his wife Jess, and the little girl, and the 3 boys are theirs.
There's twins too, did you see that?
And my parents are back there. They don't farm, but they're here as they're part of the farming family.
So the Farm of the Year will receive a plaque like this, and we'll use this today for the prop. Their photograph will actually get put on here. We'll go out and do a photo shoot with the Baker Farm family. We will also be visiting them to do a Faces of Farming campaign, so you'll really get to see how the farm works. And then they also receive this beautiful plaque.
Hey.
Yeah, and that will just lay on the floor. So, can we get a picture?
Can everybody?
Yep, everybody up, and we're gonna come forward.
Stand beside Terry Baker.
How are you?
Good, how are you? Thank you.
Just through these 2-3 rows.
Okay, little ones in front, come on.
Oh,
We all want to sit together.
It's like, oh.
Tall boys, little ones in front. Mom, you're in the front. Come on, Mommy, look, we gotta switch together some more.
Third time,
Yep, we gotta have a little bit more. Yep, we gotta go.
Hey, you want this picture, Saul? Don't cover your face there.
No, more.
my dad.
Which
one are the twins?
We need a little bit. Just a little more. Scrunch in, scrunch in.
There we go.
Okay, everybody look at the camera.
Yeah, look at the camera. Look at the camera. No, there we go.
Perfect.
I blinked, guys.
All right. Congratulations, Baker Farm. We'll see you all in person.
Congratulations, Mary. Yeah, I'll be honest with you.
I'll see you Thursday. Yes, ma'am. Fair tonight?
Everything I've ever thrown at dairy farm farms are in Washington County, but we're losing farms.
We are, yeah.
One-third of all the state dairy farms are in Washington County.
It's because they used to be in Frederick County. Frederick County used to have more dairy farms than we do.
All right, next on the agenda. All right, Terry Bakers. I just sounds like, what?
Right.
Brian, I'll see you on Thursday.
He's on a rant and rave right now.
All right, next on the agenda is the proclamation for Economic Development Week for October. Please introduce yourselves in the matter.
Good morning, Susan Grimes, Director of Business Development. And I'm going to have Leslie stay with me, and some of my other staff may come over. We are here today to present to you the celebration of Business Development Week here in Washington County, Economic Development Week around the state. So we are members, active members of Maryland Economic Development Association, and each year they recognize this week in October as Business Development Week. And every year, aside from I think maybe 1 year where we couldn't go out and visit businesses in person, our staff has created a celebration around this week with a gift for businesses around the county. And we create teams to go out and visit businesses and have a celebration and to thank them for their investment and their time here in Washington County and for putting their roots in our region, as we say. So today we're here to celebrate that with a proclamation with the commissioners. And this is the gift that we're taking out this year, which is, aside from the bucket, everything is local. The cake pops are made locally in Williamsport. So we have one for each of you, and we have a sign made this year that we are going to take a picture with each business and then celebrate them on Facebook with a little bit of information.
I have to ask Susan, did you two coordinate your colors for Washington County's?
No, sir. No, sir.
Oh,
It's just automatic.
very good.
They don't even have to do.
I tend to buy a lot of blue and gold.
Do you have a list that you could give to us who you're going to visit later or something like that?
Yeah, so we're pulling the list together. We are sharing this task with the city economic development team as well. They've created some teams, so they'll be visiting some city teams. So we'll pull that together and share that with you. Absolutely.
Okay, well,
That's going on all week, right?
All week.
Right, so you started yesterday. I know
Yep.
I know a lot of people went out yesterday.
Yep.
Thank you.
we'll meet you, Susan and Leslie, we'll meet you up here. Bring for the picture too.
You all do match the cake.
All of this, all the people.
You can come down and pass it around.
On behalf of the Washington County Commissioners, we'd like to present this proclamation for Economic Development Week, October 24th, October 28, 2022. Before again, I'd like to give a heartfelt thanks and appreciation to Susan for her 8 years of work of economic development in Washington County. It's much appreciated. What you do goes unseen, but last week was a tall tale of all the things that goes on behind the scenes that staff at all levels do to make economic development happen. So heartfelt thank you from all of us. Now therefore, the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County, Maryland, do hereby proclaim the week of October 24th to 28th, 2022 as Economic Development Week in Washington County. Economic Development Week will highlight the investment in partnerships that strengthen our competitiveness in Washington County and ask all citizens to join us in recognizing and reaffirming the importance of business development locally and statewide. Congratulations. Thank you to you and your team. And now can we join the commissioners for a photograph? Come forward, you guys can't get out of this. Get right there in the center, poster in the center, staff in the center.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Motion to go into closed session.
Motion to go into closed session.
Second, first and second, all in favor, say aye. Aye, 5-0. Thank you very